to another adventure in Australian literature. So it's been a while since I was here. It's been a while, but I have a book that I'm going to bring to you. But before we start, remember, if you would like to support us, come across. We have our shop where we have our books and we have our writing services. There is also our Redbubble shop where there's over 100 designs on all sorts of products. So they make very nice Christmas presents. Hint, hint. But if you want to support us but you don't want to spend any money, please like, subscribe, comment and share. Those things really, really help. So, what are we doing today? Today I have a book that, while it wouldn't be considered a piece of great Australian literature, I saw it and I thought, you know what, I'm going to have to read that. And that book is, I'm going to have to put my hands over some bottoms. That book is Barry Humphries' Women in the Background. So, Women in the Background by Barry Humphries. Now, this is from 1995. It's a book I actually remember seeing in bookstores and then in second-hand bookstores. So I do recall it being around, but it was never one that I had picked up. But then I was hunting around for various different things and I saw, oh, Barry Humphries has written a book. And I've seen that book before, especially when I saw the hardcover version. So I went and hunted it out and that's what we're talking about today. So why did I hunt this out? Well, Barry Humphries is one of the foremost comic talents of the latter part of the 20th century in Australia. Really, no one could possibly have escaped the scourge of Dame Edna Everage. No one has, until recently, very recently, because he died not that long ago. He was very elderly. He was in his 80s. Barry Humphries has been a mainstay of Australian comedy. And he's been pretty emblematic of Australian comedy for a long time. Basically, old Australian comedy, you have Barry Humphries and you have Paul Hogan. And of the two, Barry Humphries is the not embarrassing one, to a degree. So it's like, okay, I have Barry Humphries, one of his memoirs, but when I saw, there he is, there's old Bazza. When I saw he had a novel, I thought, oh well, okay, I'll have a look at his novel. So, Women in the Background. What's it about? Women in the Background is about an Australian performer in England. He's in his mid-50s. He has one of his biggest performances is a female character called Mrs. Petty. He is called Derek Pettyfer. He comes from Adelaide. And his career is swimming along nicely. Which, when it comes to a comic novel, means that there is going to be a fall. And it's going to be pretty rapid. Because that's how comic novels work. Or at least that's how this kind of comic novel works. So, all the chapters are, the women in the background refers to all the women around and in his life that have significance in this story. Every single chapter relates to a different woman. So Derek Pettyfer meets and interacts with various different women, ex-wives, current girlfriends, ex-girlfriends, makeup artists, friends, work colleagues, all sorts of different women. And these women all bring different elements out of Derek Pettyfer. Now, they also have their own things happening and going on, but this is sort of the background to his life. What we are seeing are the behind the scenes stuff. We're not really seeing his performance world, and his fame and all of that. What we're seeing is this man becoming undone. He's not coming undone because of women, not entirely. Because this is a comic novel, he's coming undone from his own stupidity. As John Cleese, I think, said, when he was talking about, when he was defending the life of Brian, that they very quickly realised you can't have, a comedy about St. Francis of Assisi or Jesus, because comedy is about vain, stupid, vice-ridden individuals. And Derek Pettyfer is certainly a vice-ridden individual. And comedy is generally about causing people to come unstuck. Now, Derek Pettyfer is an Australian of a certain generation, and he lives in London. This is 1995 London, but he lives still with the remnants of the expatriate community around him. There is his business manager. There are the dentists, who are actually Kiwis. They're not Australians, but they still fit into this expatriate world. And so he lives in his own very particular part of London. This book is a satire of showbiz. It's a satire of showbiz pretty much at any time, but it's a satire of the London showbiz world. Not the theatre world as such. It is more interested in celebrity. We don't see a lot of actual performance. We don't see a lot of people performing. We do see journalists. We see a lot of hangers-on. And we see people using positions in various different ways, and using other people in various different ways to advance themselves. So there is also a journalist who is digging up dirt on Derek. And so all of this sort of comes together in this narrative. Now, this isn't... There are various different types of comic narrative that actually occur. This is a rare comic narrative. Now, I say that in that it's a rare comic narrative to find in novels. Aside from being a satirical novel, which makes sense because it's Barry Humphries, who's a great satirist. His characters are satirising Australia, a very particular kind of Australia, that did play more overseas than here, to be honest. But although he's a satirist, one of the other things that drew my attention to this is the story of a fall. Now, falls are really rare, at least comic falls. When I went looking for how do you structure a fall, generally speaking, people talk about it as being like a tragedy, like Hamlet, like, oh, you have a fatal flaw. Now, a comic character doesn't have a fatal flaw. A comic character has great big flaws that they wear on them. They're very, very stark. It's their own useless stupidity that makes the comedy happen and makes the fall happen. But a fall narrative is really difficult to actually find. Although it is a thing. The only other fall narrative that I can really think of is The Rise and Fall of Kelvin Walker by Alistair Gray, which is that trajectory up followed by a steep plummet. Now, Barry Humphries has his character already up. He's up. He's at a top. He's just had his show renewed by the BBC. He's getting lots of money. He's wealthy. He's got a new young girlfriend. He has a comfortable house, which means essentially everything is going to get ripped out from under him, and he is going to fall fast, and everyone's going to see that. Now, that is a comic thing. You basically, what you need if you're creating a fall is a character who is big enough that once they start falling, they start pulling down everything else with them. So you have to create a character, which Barry Humphries does, that can pull the scenery down with them. Because if they don't pull the scenery down with them, it's not much of a fall. And it's different from a tragic fall, because a tragic fall, you're meant to feel sympathetic. You're meant to feel sorry for this person, that this undid them. You know, you don't come out of Hamlet thinking that was a wild ride, that was some laughs, that was, he got what he deserved. They all got what they deserved. No, you come out at the end of Hamlet with a big pile of bodies on the stage going, whoa, that was intense. Or Lear. Lear's full of laughs, isn't it? At fall. No, you come out of the end of Lear thinking that stupid old man. Those stupid old men, Lear and Gloucester, and those vicious children. So, a fall story generally, if it's a tragedy, has a sympathetic or somewhat sympathetic, I have problems with you, character. A comedic fall, they don't have to be so sympathetic, and their flaws need to be somewhat obvious to everyone except to the reader, not necessarily to themselves. This is how they get themselves into trouble. If you look at, for instance, Blackadder, but not look at it as individual series, but as the entire arc of the family. That is one big fall. From nephew to the king, or son of the king, okay, he did kill the king, he killed his uncle, son of the king, and briefly, King of England, to a colonial captain who's got dragged into the First World War, a courtier in the Elizabethan age, a butler to the king in the Georgian age, and cannon fodder in the Edwardian age. The Blackadders have a fall. Now, did they deserve that fall? Yes they did. Yes they did. The grasping, greedy creatures did. We know this because we've all seen the Blackadder's Christmas Carol, where he was offered, but we know that by not continuing to be good, by choosing to be bad, sure, he might get to be Emperor of the Universe, but at what cost? At what cost? I throw that in because Christmas is approaching, and that is one of my Christmas viewings. But that's a fall. And we all know Blackadder, so we all know exactly what kind of appalling characteristics he has. So a fall is a very particular thing in comedy, and it is rare. But then again, comedy writing is rare. Now, this book is funny. It is definitely satirical. Is it perfect? No. If I were going to say, like, if I were thinking about it, I would say that there are some jokes that kind of rely on you being able to see them. They're visual jokes. They would work if it was a stage show or a television show. But in a book, because you have to describe it, it lacks that moment of laughter that you would have. There's one point where he's sitting with the Inland Revenue people and his accountant, and his accountant farts. Now, that is the kind of thing that, if based on the way that the accountant is written, based on the situation and the seriousness of everything, the drunk accountant would be on film very funny. Does it translate to the page? Not really. It's a film joke that doesn't transfer to the page. Page jokes on the page are actually really hard to make. It is very hard because you can't rely on visuals necessarily to make the joke. Now, does that mean that the satire doesn't work? No, the satire actually works quite well, but some of the jokes don't, because it is relying on you. The way that it feels is, yes, that ran wonderfully in your head when you were visualizing it. You attempted to get that out onto the page, which you did, but the timing on the page isn't the same as timing in film. And because writing on the page, you have to, when you're on the page, you have to move around. Whereas in film, everything is happening at the same time. So the viewer can see the tax officers, they can see Pettyfer, and they can see the accountant all in one moment, and you can make that image work. You also have sound, and you have acting. Not so easy to do on the page. So even if you describe something, it doesn't always come off. Now, there aren't too many moments like that, which is good. Because it would be disappointing to see that. As a satire, again, I say it works very well. However, it also feels, and this is I think something that is rather unique to performers or anyone like Barry Humphries, who spent the majority of their career, and frankly their adult lives, out of Australia, is that they are always going to be stuck. Their Australia and the current Australia are always going to be lagging. Their Australia is going to be the Australia that they left, and they are not going to be so connected to the Australia that has marched on without them. Although Australia might be quite proud to say, oh, well, this person is one of us and this person is one of us. The fact that they have lost that lived experience of being in Australia and understanding what the comedy or the society is like. Because the difference between the late 1950s, early 1960s and the 1990s is massive. Australia changed a lot in that period. And what you find is some of this is a little bit out of date. the Australia that's being satirised is not necessarily the Australia that is actually there. Now, it's not too bad. There is not that much in Australia in this book. It's mostly London, and that's done very, very well, because that's the world that Barry Humphries as a performer knows extremely well. But he is stuck in an older, whiter, male version of Australia. Because by the 1990s, you had some exceptionally good women comics coming up. And I think of Jean Kitson or Judith Lucy or Magda Sabansky. There are others. Nowadays you have even more diverse comics coming up. You have people with much more diverse backgrounds than the very white comic world that Barry Humphries grew up in. And as a result, the comedy shifts. It doesn't mean that the world that he satirizes doesn't exist. It does exist. Of course it does exist. There's always laggy pockets everywhere, especially suburban laggy pockets. But you do notice it when you see someone writing in that way, where they've been away for a long time and it sort of feels like, oh, is that Australia in 95? I was 15 in 95. I'm pretty sure we had some other things going on. It wasn't like it was in 1965, for instance. It's not still the world of Barry Mackenzie. So, which is, I think, 1970 something. But it's not the world of Barry Mackenzie anymore, and that, I would say, is a bit of a flaw with the book. Would I recommend it? Yeah, it's a quick read. It's a quick read. There are funny elements to it. It's not perfect, but Barry Humphries isn't really a writer. Not a novel writer. He is a performer primarily, and the shortcomings in the book can really come from there. His dialogue is very good, which you would expect from a performer. Performers generally are quite capable of writing very good dialogue. But is it perfect? No. Is it a story of a fall? Absolutely. Is absolutely the story of a fall, and he skewers a lot of people on his way down as he falls. A lot of different people, a lot of pretensions get punctured with this book. So, yes, it is worth having a look if you pick it up somewhere. I'm not sure what I'm going to do next. I think her ladyship has things a bit sewn up till the end of the year. She's got at least 2 videos. I know Janice has a video coming. I think her Infernal Majesty will want something for Christmas. So I'm not sure if I'll be here again until next year. Boy, imagine saying that. We also have a new book coming out this month, so that's another video slot taken up. So yeah, I think this may be my last video for the year. If I don't come back and see you again, it's been a really fun year, and I will be back next year. But if I do, I'm not sure what I'll be back with. Probably something short, given the number of things that we still have going. But yeah, so I will see you again for another adventure in Australian literature sometime probably in the new year. So until then, goodbye.
If you would like to support this channel, come across to the Black Cockie Press website, www.blackcockiepress.com.au, where you will find books and other writing services to help with your writing.